Good morning, guys. How are you today? Good to see everybody on there. Already getting started in the chat. Love it. Good morning, Rick, Rafa, and Terry. I see you guys there. And we have on the Rumble side, we got Felony. Welcome this morning. Good to have you. Yeah, it is fall. It is fall. We're about to have leaves changing, if you don't already. That's good. It's such a pretty time of year, for sure. I've actually planted trees in my yard that have the colors of leaves that I want to see in the fall. It's kind of neat. So I've got a couple that are bright yellow and a couple that are red. So I'm looking forward to seeing them change. Some of them are smaller though, so I got to wait a few years for big color bursts, but all right. Well, kind of have a clean slate this week. We did a lot of topics last week. We did like 6 topics last week. It went a little long, but I guess that was okay. So just wanted to say this week, go ahead and get your stuff in the chat that you want to talk about. Karen Morgan, you said you have peace and quiet this weekend because your boys are hunting. Good for you. So they're out in a place like is on my picture behind me, huh? That's great. I hope they bring something home that you can eat. I'm not much of a hunter, honestly. I've had some people take me hunting before. I've gone, but I didn't have much luck, and I don't know. It didn't inspire me the way it does some people. I think I don't know. It was all right. I had an okay time. It was really cold. It's really cold. I like to shoot guns. Does that count? I think if I had more time and I did more stuff like that, it would be fishing. I really like fishing. So Rick, you say my video's not up. Oh no. What in the world? That's really bad. Okay, hang on. Video is not up. I see that now. Oh, man. Let's see here. Yeah, that's not what I wanted to happen. Oh, here we go. How about that? That's better. Oh, man. Forget one little thing, and there you go. Yeah, I do need a checklist or something so I don't forget that stuff. But anyway, I'm visible now. Deborah Miller, good morning. Stacia, C. Jones, it's good to see all y'all. Cindy. Yes, sorry about the video. We got it. It's always something. Charles Pascal, good to see you, sir. Glad to have you this morning. All right. Well, I'll just say this week. Let's see. For me, what happened? I don't know. A lot of work. My wife was doing some traveling this week. I did do a lot of study, and my studies have taken me into. Of course, you guys know I've been doing the Roman history, and how does that play into prophecy? Well, I'll just show on my screen a little bit here, because I've got it all up. I'm still looking through all of it. I was even doing some this morning. But you can see that, for instance, here I have the Greek ancient goddess Artemis, but I'm connecting these gods. So here we have Moloch and Hermanubis, the syncretism of the gods, Ra from the Egyptian pantheon, Diana, Artemis, Hecate, Tartarus, the chthonic gods. What is a chthonic god? And then Kronos over here. I'm just starting to put all those pieces together. And as you can see, here, I'm starting to chart them across to each other. Now, I have found other charts online, like some of these charts I'm finding online. Some people have done some of this, but they'll base it on different things that I'm basing my charting on, and the reasons that I am connecting these gods. This stuff is helpful, though, so I am using some of these as a guide. But what I'm trying to do is, okay, so my premise being that the, quote, gods, of course, were angelic beings, and that the same gods that were worshipped in Rome at the time of Christ were the same gods that were worshipped in ancient times. They just, promulgated through the different civilizations, but it was the same gods over and over again. And so you can see here that I'm going to be mapping from Sumerian and Babylonian, Egyptian to Persian, Greek, Roman, and then what is that entity in the Bible? And I think part of the confusion among these is I'm seeing what I feel like I'm finding. Part of the confusion that most people have with the mythological gods, whatever if you want to call them mythology, I don't like calling them that. But the thing that's confusing is there's so many names. There's so many names. In fact, some gods in the Greek and Roman pantheon have like 3 or 4 names. So I'm trying to distill all that down and map it across these different civilizations through history and show exactly why the lineage was there, this religious lineage of gods, pagan gods that were worshipped in Bible times, moves straight through to from ancient Egypt into the Mesopotamian region, into Babylon, into Persia, into Greece, and into Rome. And that's why there was this judgment that had to be had against those gods by God himself, against those fallen angels that were going astray and leading people astray, including his own people, the Jewish nation, the Israelite nation. So, anyway, it's all played into my study on the Roman history. And I think what I'm going to do is start with a video probably within the next week on the gods. Who were the gods? How did they progress through the ages and become the Roman gods that were active and being worshipped at the time of Christ? Because I think that's important to understand the judgments that God laid down, not only on Israel, but then on Rome, which was Babylon, and all these other deities that through the centuries had led people astray. So anyway, that's what I've been working on this week. It's been a lot of fun. I know it feels like I'm going slow on some of my research, but I'm trying to be very thorough, and you can see as many gods and things there are for these different civilizations. So I'm trying to discover the entire pantheon. For instance, this morning I was starting to work on the Persian pantheon, whereas I've done a lot on the Egyptian pantheon already, the Greek and Roman, a little bit here and there. I'm getting better, but it's a lot. So I just thought I'd mention that as far as what I'm been doing this week. So that's it. That's what I'm focused on. I see a viewer named Walk with Christ. It's good to have you this morning. Welcome. Squiffy Bear, good morning. As always, pleasure to have you. And let's see. What else we got? Gonna also pull up, I guess we've got a few on the Rumble side, so it's good to have you guys here. So, yeah, Stacia, Rome wasn't built in a day. Perfect. No pun intended. All right. So, topics. Let's get topics, guys. Let me pull up the list, which is blank, and we'll start talking topics. Rafa, you mentioned, is heaven legalistic? Hold on, let me get the chat back up here. You mentioned this. Is heaven legalistic like courtrooms? There is some people with OBEs and dreams that showed hell and being saved by Jesus. A lot of truthers becoming Christians. Is God awakening people? OBEs, yeah. That's an interesting topic, Rafa. That's a very interesting topic. I'm going to put it on here. Let's see how I word it. OBEs, and I'm going to also add NDEs, near-death experiences, to this. Dreams showing what? Jesus saving people. Okay. Is God awakening people? Okay, I love that topic, Rafa. I'll consider that. Let's see here. What else we got? Rick Bowser, explain the Lord trying to kill Moses in Exodus 4, 24 to 26. I'm putting that on, Rick. Rick Bowser. That sounds like a good one. Not an easy one, mind you, but a good one. Tanda 1206. In your opinion, where do you think we are in the preterist timeline? What does Matthew 24:31 refer to? Now, Tanda, I think, if I'm not mistaken, last week I missed this one. And I think you mentioned this verse last week, and you mentioned a couple different places. And I referenced the one, but I forgot the Matthew 24. So I will try to do that for you this week, for sure. Thank you, Tanda. Katie Turner, good to see you and your mom. It's good to have you all this morning. Thank you for joining. Let's see here. Yeah, Tanda. Well, I go through it afterwards. I go through my videos and my notes after the fact every week. So I usually do these live streams in the morning. And then my routine is that I then go out in the yard and do yard work. And when I come in, get cleaned up and sit down, then I rewatch everything. I usually rewatch the video to see what we talked, just how it went, how I feel it went. And I also read back through the notes. So I realized that, in my notes I had taken that Matthew 24 and I didn't go through it for you. So I'll do that. I'll do that today. Walk with Christ, you ask about cremation. Okay, let's do that. I love that, actually. Thank you, Walk with Christ. I'm gonna actually move that to the top, Walk with, because you are brand new to me. I haven't seen your name that I remember before, so I'm gonna move that to the top, and we'll do your topic as one of the first here. Stephanie Hyatt, welcome this morning. Good to have you. I see you put a message, but maybe retracted it. That's fine. But you're welcome to throw anything out, any topic at all that you want to talk about. And that's how we go here. I try to do it off the cuff, live, and spontaneously. So we see how that goes every week. It's very interesting. But that's why it's so interesting. You never know what I'm going to do. Okay, let's see. Not seeing my chat. Why am I not seeing my chat? There we go. What in the world? Chat. It's being fussy. All right. Whew. All right, let's see here. Let me I'll put on the screen the topics. We have 4 topics. We probably could go the whole time with those, but let me put them on the screen for you to take a look. And if you guys want to add anything, please don't stop from adding anything. If you want to add something, add as many as we want to do. What I'll do is I'll do as many as I can, and then I'll take them to the next week. So I'm happy to do that. Tanda, I'm moving yours up also because I was supposed to do it last week and I didn't do it. So, Rafa, I'm gonna move yours to last, and that's only because it's one of those more, it'll be a little looser, that discussion on heaven and OBEs and NDEs, not as much kind of research-based, just things I've heard and seen and that. So I like doing those kinds of things at the end where we're just kind of talking, discussing. Any other topics before we get started, guys? Any other topics? Let me double check on the Rumble and make sure, see if Felony has anything for me. And H.L. Dixon, welcome on Rumble. It's good to see you. Yeah, Felony, you're sort of alone. It's just a few y'all on Rumble, and then sometimes we get a few views through the week on Rumble. But I like having both streams because YouTube tends to be finicky, and then I never know what they're going to do with my stream. If they're going to chop parts of it out, they've done that before. Or they're going to just block it. So and then you never know. Oh boy, Stacia, you got me a topic. All right, let's see. What did Christ really mean when he said, "When 2 or 3 are gathered, I am there"? In contrast, he also says he doesn't dwell in the temple made with human hands. Could this be why the church feels empty? Maybe. All right, let me put that on the list. Stacia, maybe. We'll just put that on the list as let's see. Well, we'll put the whole thing on there, but okay. Stacia. Okay, you're on there, Stacia. Then Rafa, you said my take on AI or demons, or is it demons or aliens or anything like that? Okay, Rafa, I'll put that on the list. Probably going to bump that to next week, but that's fine. We can do that. We can at least mention it next week. Terry Barnes, you said you'd love to hear me elaborate on the multiple gods study that you did. Well, Terry, I'm still in the middle of it. That's the problem, is I'm trying to really get a syncretic look across the gods of these different civilizations. And again, see how they progressed. How one god in this one just became lifted. For instance, Mithra. Mithra was a Persian god. I just was learning about it this morning. More or less, but I knew that there was a cult of Mithras in the Roman Empire, right? So they simply pulled the god from the Persian worship and started worshiping it in Rome, and then there became a cult of Mithras, and there was blood sacrifice, blood drinking and stuff as a part of that cult, apparently. So, it's just, again, it's the tracing of these angelic beings and their interaction with these different civilizations through history, so that I can trace them to the first century when Christ came and there was judgment in that time period. So I will definitely, Terry, do more in the future. That's my goal, is to get a video out on that exact topic in the next week. I was kind of wanting to do it this week, but there's just so much. Let's see. Karen Morgan, you say, do you think visions and dreams in the prophetic is in our season? Interesting question, Karen. I'm going to put that on here. And then Katie Turner, you said your mom's reading a book called The Forbidden Universe by Lynn Picknett and Clive Prince. It's a very comprehensive exposure of the beginning of the cosmological model. Oh, that's great info. I'm going to put that on my notes, Katie. And of course, I'm going to look into that kind of a thing. See if I can find that book or look at it, see what it's all about. It's awesome. All right. Now we've got a real list. It's not a baby list anymore. It's a fully grown-up list. And here's the list. It's massive. So I think we'll just start going down, and depending on what time it looks like, I think we may just get the first 4 done, guys. But if we can get further than that, then we'll try. We'll see. And we'll just see where we get. So thank you guys so much for participating this morning and bringing these topics. So let me get cremation, our first topic from Walk with Christ, ready to go. So let's talk about cremation. And this, I guess, will be more or less me talking about it. I haven't done a ton of research on cremation, when it began, and, all of that. So I will just admit that up front. But cremation is interesting. And I believe that if I did study some of the church fathers a little more closely, I might find them talking about this practice, because the practice of cremation, and you can think about the symbology of it, which we'll talk about in just a second, but the practice of cremation came literally straight from the pagan religions in the ancient times, the Old Testament. And you can imagine why, but yeah, the pagans would do that. Now, as far as I understand, of course, you can look back in the Bible and see in biblical Israelite nation, they did not cremate, right? There's talk about, I can't remember, I'm going to misspeak on the names of the patriarchs, but there's like caves, they would bury them in caves, put them in special places, or build an altar where they were buried. So that the ancient Israelites, and we would assume they did it at the command of God, or at least with the knowledge of what God would want in the situation. They did not do a cremation process. They buried their dead. And so we can at least have that vision into ancient history, that the pagan nations seemed to be the ones that wanted to burn their dead. And the Israelites, for instance, did not. They buried their dead. And by the way, I'm not saying right now, and I'm not going to say during this entire discussion, anything about cremation being like sinful, or like you're negative in any way. I don't know that I'm qualified to say that, or have any really opinion on that. I don't really have an opinion on that idea, right? That it somehow affects either your morality, or has some effect on a person after they die. I'm not qualified to make that statement or talk about that, really. But you do have to recognize how it was in ancient times. And then, we have the example of, for instance, the god Molech, right, from the Old Testament, which I have been studying a little bit this week because of this study on the pagan gods. And of course, we know the practices discussed in the Bible was that they would have babies, and some of their babies would be sacrificed to Molech. And in the way in which that was done was that they were passed through the fire, so to speak. They were burned to death in an attempt to give them to the deity that they worshipped. Molech, who was an underworld deity, a deity of Hades or hell. And so the idea of, quote, passing them through the fire meant sending them to that deity's place of dwelling. So that's why the fire was used. And that wasn't, of course, necessarily for the dead, but I'm just telling you that to make you think about the symbolism of, quote, passing through the fire, and what it meant in ancient times, and what I think is the basis of the practice of cremation. I think it's the same. Now, human intent, like if it's a human's intent to worship a deity by burning a body of a deceased loved one, which I'm not saying that's most people's intent, but let's talk about it in terms of ancient times. That just because they intend that doesn't mean it has a real effect in the spiritual world, or sends that person to hell, so to speak. So I guess I'm saying that so people that are on this call that may have had a relative cremated or that kind of thing, I don't necessarily believe, but not that it matters what I believe, but I don't necessarily believe that has any effect on a person after their death. meaning it doesn't send them to hell necessarily or anything like that. That I know of, and I don't feel qualified to really tell you the answer, but it doesn't seem to me that would matter. It, according to God, seems to be the Spirit that matters. The Spirit is what matters. Now, we do read in the times of Christ and the Christians, the early Christian church, the apostolic church, that they, if I remember correctly, I have seen them discuss burial, and that it had to do with there was thoughts concerning God resurrecting people, and that we've even discussed on this channel that we've discussed resurrection in many cases and what that really means. It's a spiritual resurrection when human souls are taken to heaven, and it's not that you come back to life on the earth. You do come back to life, so to speak, but it's spiritual. Death is Hades and life is heaven. So there is this, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, but resurrection, right? Resurrection is a spiritual thing. And there's books in the writings of the early Christians that talk about when you're resurrected spiritually, that God also takes the remnants of your body from the earth and refashions them into a new body for you. So the early Christians, of course, supported burial because it preserved the body, and they expected at some point for God to take that flesh, that material that your body was made of, and remake it into a new body for you in heaven. So then that idea is out there, of course, as far as the apostolic church, the early Christians. So then you have to ask yourself, well, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that it's important to keep that practice today? Do you feel like a burial represents your beliefs better than a cremation? I guess that's kind of where I stand. I definitely feel that a burial scenario for my death is more in line with my beliefs. Whereas a cremation ceremony or a cremation has nothing to do with my beliefs in my eternal destiny or what I think will happen with my body after I die. It's not in sync with my belief system at all. So I would personally never be cremated, and I would be horrified if my family wanted to do that with me. I'm just saying. And so if any of my family are listening, don't you dare cremate me or I'll come back from the dead and strangle you. So anyway, that is my feelings on cremation, I think. I think that's pretty exhaustive. Let me check what you guys are saying in the chats. Oh, goodness. Y'all went to town there for a minute. Yes. Katie, you say my background looks like Oregon. Nice. Is Oregon that pretty? I need to go there. That'd be great. B. Nichols, welcome this morning. Good to have you. Sick kids missing church, but happy to join in. Awesome. Thank you for joining in. Sorry your kids are sick, though. Rafa, you say baptism seems relevant for early fathers directly related to be saved. Should we baptize us and our children again if done before as Catholic, Protestant, or others? Well, my short answer is that you don't have to, probably. But I'm not going to do that as a large topic today, but I'll just say that. But B. Nichols, you say as a covenantal Presbyterian, you would like to see the answers. Okay, well, maybe I'll put that on my list. Maybe we can discuss that in another session, because I've got a bunch of topics right now. And I don't want to be here till 4 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, 4 o'clock where I is, where I am. Some of you guys, it may be 4 o'clock. I don't know. All right. Yeah, so that I think is my feelings on cremation. I guess we'll leave that there. We will leave that there. Talk faster. Yeah. Katie, you said we cremated my dad. My sister had a really hard time with the idea of burying him. It scared her. I've thought about this though. Yeah. And again, Katie, I just don't think God can do anything. So there's no sense in which I think we can foil God's plans for our departed loved ones by cremating them. I just don't believe that. But again, I told you what I feel about it for myself and for my beliefs, but it is for each person, I suppose, to decide for themselves. It's really hard to find any specific evidence, but all I can say is what I've shared, through ancient history and all that, and it had specific meanings to people in those times, and today it doesn't seem to have much meaning to people, but I know my preference. That's all I can say. And Walk with Christ, you say, what about when Christ said, follow me and let the dead bury the dead to one of his disciples? Yeah, well, I think that Walk with Christ was not, of course, related to cremation or burial ceremonies necessarily. It was just a statement about the importance of what Christ was doing, and to his disciples, he was saying, it's more important for you right now that you follow me than you go tend to that ceremony, right? That burial ceremony. He wasn't really making any kind of comment on the burial itself or the process of burial or, cremation and whatever. Tanda, you say you think that today cremation is just an economic issue. Perhaps people do it because it's cheaper. Is that true? I guess that's true. I don't even know how much it costs to get a cremation. I know burial ceremonies and coffins are ridiculously expensive and all this other stuff. Now, I will say this in regards to that stuff. I know it's going to be hard to convince my family of this, but I truly wish that when I die, they would simply put me in a pine box, like literally slat pine box, and put me in the ground. I don't need I don't need one of these massive coffins put in a cement, enclosure. That's what they do, by the way, right? Nowadays when they bury you, they put down in the ground first a cement box, like a cement box. You don't see that. They put it in there before they lower the coffin in there. So there's this huge cement box. And then they put this massively expensive coffin down in the cement box and put a seal or a top on the cement box. So you're in a box in the dirt. I would rather be, and I don't know if I can convince my family to do this for me, but this is what I want. I want to be put in a pine box, slat pine box, nailed together with nails, and just put in the ground, and then let me decompose the way I'm supposed to, and all that. I don't care. But I just, I think those ridiculous coffins we use nowadays and those huge cement encasings are just ridiculous. What are we preserving? I don't understand. It's not natural at all to me. But Stephanie, you say, I just want to be buried in the backyard. That's kind of like this to me too. And Stacia, you said the same thing. People used to bury their loved ones in the backyard. Now we pay for a coffin and a plot. It benefits the government. Perhaps we should go back to burying in the backyard. Yes, I think we should. However, if you do that, then the government, if they find out, they come out and they fine you and all this other stuff and do all this stuff to you. It's really ridiculous, the encroachment on our personal lives that the government has now. But yeah, they'll do stuff. They don't like that. They don't want you. They'll say you're going to poison the water supply or something stupid like that. It's not even true. Anyway, I had a friend who was digging in their backyard one day, and they found a grave. They found graves, and very old ones, right? And then they called, of course, the authorities, and it became this huge legal mess. They actually are not allowed, once it's declared a burial site, they're not allowed to dig up the bodies and do anything. They can't do anything. They had to wait for the government to come do all of it. And they essentially lost access to their yard for a long time till the government got these people either relocated or whatever they did. And I can't remember exactly the outcome, but it was ridiculous from what I heard. So anyway, if you're digging in your yard and you find a dead body in the ground, you need to cover it up and go back inside. Maybe put a little flag there so you remember never to dig there again. Just leave it alone. Oh my goodness. Terry Barnes, you ask, where does buried at sea fit in? I think that's I mean, it's, to me, it's almost equivalent to being buried in the ground. I don't think it matters. The ancient people thought that the sea was part of the underworld as well. So, being thrown in the sea, I think, was a fitting way to, quote, bury a person, Anyway. Yeah, Stacia, say nothing if you find dead bodies. All right. Okay, I think we'll go on then to our next topic. Let's see how I put this on here. This is yours, Tanda 1206. So the preterist timeline, in the preterist timeline, what does Matthew 24:31 refer to? So I'll pull it up. I know it's part of the Olivet Discourse, but I don't remember the verse specifically, so let's go look it up. Matthew 24. There we go. Okay, let's get it bigger. And 24:31. All right. And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet. They shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. All right. So what I think I want to do, contextually, let's see, in Matthew here, immediately after the tribulation shall the sun be darkened, the moon will not give light, the stars fall from heaven, the powers of heaven will be shaken, then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now, I'll just say this, verse 30, I'm a little in the way. Let's see if I'm going to scoot over a little bit. There we go. Verse 30, I have felt and still do feel generally that the sign of the Son of Man in heaven was the star that was mentioned by Josephus. He said it looked like a sword, but I think it really looked like a cross. And it was a star that was in the sky for an entire year. And it was so bright, everybody saw it. And the tribes of the earth mourn. They would see the Son of Man coming afterwards in the clouds of heaven with power and glory. I think that was when we're talking about the angels that were seen in heaven, in the heavens over the cities, the soldiers and chariots and all that stuff. I think that is what we're talking about here. So then in verse 31, it says, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet. They will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now, I think, I believe right now that this is exactly what happened in that time period. It is talking about broadly the events of about the years 66 to 70 AD. In just the three verses we just read, it's a very obscure statements, very general statements about a long time period, a lot of stuff happening. But I believe that this is when he gathers those out of Hades. He gathers them from the earth. I think he did gather some from the earth, actually. I can't prove that to you with chapter and verse or certain writings, but I get the feeling that probably a lot of different things happened at this time. But gathering your elect from the four winds, that means from wherever they are. And I think that means the Christians, I think some of the Christians were taken at that time. I believe that definitely the dead righteous were taken at this time. Especially the righteous who had died for their testimony, the testimony of the word of God, okay? And the testimony of the Logos of God, of Christ. So during the 40 years between his resurrection and his ascension and then 70 AD, the people talked about in that time period that were martyred for their belief in God, in Christ, were these, the elect, the chosen. And he's like, then he's going to gather all of them from the four winds. In fact, some of them were already in heaven. So he gathers them from everywhere and comes to essentially do battle. You know, do you remember in Revelation, I want to say it's chapter 17 or 19. I don't remember which. It says, you know, he's comes from heaven on a horse with his garments that are white, and it says on his garments, faithful and true. And he comes with his many saints, right? That's the people that it's talking about here. They're gathered from the four winds and come in battle with Christ at this time in the heavens. And of course, we do have interesting, amazing, miraculous references to that kind of a thing happening in 70 AD. So I feel like that is what I feel about verse 31 there. Then he goes into the parable of the fig tree, which is just, again, a very broad, general statement about that time period, that, you know, these things are coming, and it's talking about the imminence of what's going to happen, the parable of the fig tree there. And then, of course, the verse that all the, futurists love to hate, verily I say to you, this generation will not pass till all of these things are fulfilled. So yeah, I believe that's where we stand. Let me check up on your chat there, make sure I'm not missing anything that you're saying. All right. Yep. C. Jones, you asked, do I believe that verse 36 to the end of the chapter is still talking about the same event, or is it talking about a third coming of Christ? Well, let's take a look. I can say right off the bat, I don't think it's third coming, but it says heaven and earth. We'll just keep going then, straight down here. There's 35. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But of that day and hour knows no man, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. I mean, this to me, and we've, I think I've discussed this a few times, when it says the days of Noah, it explains it here. We don't have to guess at what this verses mean, right? People will read this verse and they say, well, the days of Noah, that's where the giants were going crazy and eating people and cannibalizing and, interbreeding with animals and all sorts of weird stuff. But that's not really what this context is, because he goes on in verse 38. It says, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking. They were marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. And they knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And I would say that in exactly the same way as the flood came, and most people, other than the remnant that would be saved, Noah and his family, the remnant, most people didn't have a clue and weren't paying attention and thought Noah was nuts and stupid. And then the rain came. And just in the same way, I think in 70 AD, the remnant knew because they had listened to Christ. They listened to this passage, in fact. Get that in your head. The Christians listened to Christ, sit on a hillside, and say these things. Say these exact things. The disciples specifically in this chapter. But just think about that. The Christians knew these things, right? But the coming of the Son of Man was going to be a surprise to most, just like in the days of Noah, right? And that's the context of what's shown here. It doesn't say anything about the fallen ones would be genetically manipulating people in the last days. No, that's not what this is talking about. This is talking about the surprise, that it would be a surprise and not expected by the majority of the people who would be affected by it. And that's exactly what happened in 70 AD. It was a surprise for most people, except the Christians, who were warned by Christ and the disciples in advance. And they fled the city, and they were safe. But it's interesting, too, the reference to the flood, because if you remember I think it's in Daniel 9, when it's talking about this time period, it mentions a flood, a deluge. And of course, I believe that that deluge there, it's using the word in a general sense, deluge. The deluge there, I believe, is the Roman armies, the flood of the armies into the city. But it's interesting that the same word applies in both cases. So it's just an interesting correlation. Not saying it's, concrete, but it's interesting. So I guess, C. Jones, that's what I would say. You say your partial preterist friends believe that the subject matter changes in verse 36 and that Jesus was now then talking about the end of the world. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they may say that because of verse 35, where it says heaven and earth would pass away, but my words would not. And you have to understand the reason he's saying that. He's saying you can believe what I'm saying. You can believe me. A lot of people will say, no, this is talking about the heaven and earth passing away. You've got the futurists saying this is the end of the world, which is wrong. That's not what this is talking about. And you have the full preterists saying this is the temple that was going to pass away. No, that's wrong. And I've talked about that on many occasions. This is simply a statement saying heaven and earth even are made to be expired at some point, but my words will never expire. It's, again, if you take the context correctly, like we can with the Noah statement, this statement is about his words being true. He's trying to prove in a logical sense that his words are true here. And then, C. Jones, you say in verse 36, they say that the but is then a shift in the entire, they'll do that a lot. They will do that a lot. And I just really, it's amazing to me, the hoops we jump through sometimes to think that it's saying something different or saying something that we want it to say instead of what it is saying. And the funny thing is, too, as you can see on my screen, we go to the Greek, and it's not really the word but per se. It says concerning, and this is a word, according to Strong's, from the base of properly or through or around. So it's a conjunctive word from the previous. But it's a how do I explain it? It's a combination of conjunctive and preposition. Okay, it's not even a word we have. This peri in Greek is not a word we have in English. We just don't use it. So it's a totally different word. It's not the word but. And the however here is another conjunctive or kind of prepositional word, de, which means but or and, or it's just a conjunctive. And so we can't really directly translate that into a but that's what they decided to do when they translated it. So now you have people in the modern time saying, well, because the word but's there, it's a change in the entire topic. No, that's not true. It's not that hard in the Greek. It's not that hard of a transition. The word kai is similar. It's and, and as you can see, de is a conjunctive, and is a conjunctive, kai is a conjunctive. It's just like they're saying, it's almost like you could translate this as also then the day, then the hour, no one knows. But it's saying about that whole thing, the day and the hour, nobody knows. It's not, it's just not what people want it to be. We can't just make it what it's not. So I would say that that's what they're doing in that case. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty good on this topic. So Tanda, I hope that we kind of answered that for you. You said here in the chat, so I'm talking about all the righteous dead from Adam to the resurrection of Christ. And in response to your question, yes, that's what I was talking about, when they would be gathered from the four winds. But you remember, by the way, Tanda, at this time in history, in the 60s AD, close to the time when he was coming back, as far as I understand it, there was a group of the righteous that Christ had already resurrected out of Hades and put in the Garden of Eden. And that's according to the writings in the early Christian writings, like the Gospel of Nicodemus. When he went down to Hades at his death in 30 AD, he literally took some of them, the patriarchs and the righteous Jews, out and put them in Eden to await, into paradise, to await the kingdom. Okay? Well, I guess the kingdom had already started, but that had happened. So again, you got different groups in different places. And you had during the 30, 40 years until this time too, you had many other Christians and Jews that were messianic in their beliefs. They believed in Christ. Many of them die for their testimony, and they were in probably Hades again, waiting for the 70 AD event, for him to finish it all and bring the kingdom forward. So then all of them are collected from the four winds, if that makes sense. That's how they would say that, because they're all in different places. So I hope that makes sense. Sometimes things make sense in my head, and then I say them, and I hope they make sense. But I hope that helps a little bit. All right. I think we'll go on to the next topic, and that would be Rick Bowser, yours, about explaining the Lord trying to kill Moses in Exodus 4, 24 through 26. So let's put that on the board here. Okay, that fit on the screen? Yes, it did. Awesome. Let's talk about this one. So, Exodus 4. I think you said, 24 through 26. Let's just go read a little bit. And I'm going to start in verse 21, just so we get a little bit of the context. I may go back further in a minute. The Lord said to Moses, when you go to return to Egypt, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I will harden his heart, that he will not let the people go. And you will say unto Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say to thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. So this is God giving Moses the instructions to go to Pharaoh and talk to him about the coming of the angel of death, quote unquote, that would slay the firstborn of Egypt as a punishment for not letting his people go. And it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go, then said, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. And the Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him at the mount of God and kissed him. All right. Wow, Rick, you gave me a hard one, huh? I knew you would. You always do. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord had sent him, all the signs which he commanded him. Okay. So let me see. I'm worried that I'm getting some fuzziness because of the translation. This is the King James, so I'm wondering if checking on other translation might help us. Let's see here. So let me do this real quick, Rick Bowser. Since you're the kid who sits in the front of the class and asks the hard questions, huh? I see. No, it's fine. So let's go to the Young's literal. I just want to see what that looks like in a more literal translation before I try to decipher the Hebrew here. It's a little tough. It says, okay, Jehovah said to Moses all the things we read. And it comes to pass in the way, in a lodging place, that Jehovah met him and sought to put him to death. And Zipporah took a flint, and cut the foreskin off her son, caused it to touch his feet, and said, Surely a bridegroom of blood art thou to me. He desisteth from him. Then she said, a bridegroom of blood, in reference to the circumcision. Very interesting. So now I'm digging a little bit. It came to pass along the way at the encampment that met him Yahweh. Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. Rick, it might be something I just want to take and study, because I'm not probably going to give you a great answer right now unless I find something that really strikes me. It's a hard, it doesn't even really, it's not making a lot of sense to me at all. Probably is why you asked too. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And the relationship, here's the thing, Rick. So, oh, this is small for you. Hold on. So here where it says, and Zipporah takes a flint and cuts the foreskin off her son and causes it to touch his feet. Surely a bridegroom of blood are you to me. And he desisteth from him. Then she said, a bridegroom of blood, in reference to the circumcision. It almost feels to me like this, Rick, that we're missing something here. Like we're missing, I don't want to say the Bible's incomplete, but I'm saying the way it's written, I don't understand fully why, for like you're saying, why did God want to kill him, right? Why did he? But I would say, based on what I'm reading, my gut tells me that it might be because they had not circumcised, that Moses had not circumcised his son. And if that's true, I'm making assumptions. Okay, I'm making assumptions. Perhaps Moses had not circumcised his son as he was supposed to. And God was about to rain down on him because of it. Kill him, so to speak. And Zipporah, then he commanded her perhaps to do the circumcision. And that's what we're reading. It's this event where, they hadn't circumcised, and God had wanted that, of course, because Moses was of the Jewish nation. And this is then Zipporah, who is not, she's, what is she? I can't remember what nation she is from. Zipporah. Oh, well, I can't remember. Edomite. No. Midianite. That's right. Midianite. I couldn't think. So Zipporah, not a Jew. She didn't like the circumcision, obviously, because, I think that this is what we're talking about. It has something to do with all this, but I just don't feel like we're getting all of the story. And I feel like if I had time, Rick, to study it and go maybe back to some Midrashic writings, some rabbinical writings, and see what the Jews thought about this story, they might have more context than we do. I would also check in the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasher. Those are, again, Jewish writings that parallel a lot of these events. And so you might get a little different take on it if we read those. In fact, why don't I try that right quick here and just see if I get hits when I do that kind of a search. Zipporah. That's interesting. I didn't get a hit. And just hit Moses. Oh, come on. I want Moses. Go. Did it not work? Hold on. There's Jasher. We got some hits. Jasher 76. Yeah, I bet we'll have to go to chapter 77 in Jasher. Moses was confined in the house of Reuel for 10 years, while Zipporah, his daughter, supported him with food secretly day by day. So that's interesting. That's stuff that's not in the biblical account. Oh man, there's a lot here, Rick. There's a lot here. I really would want to do a study of this now. In those days, Moses took Zipporah to be his wife, the daughter of Reuel the Midianite, chapter 78 of Jasher. She walked in the ways of the daughters of Jacob. So she followed in, apparently, the Jewish ways as much as she could. Was nothing short of the righteousness of Sarah and all these others. She had bare a son named Gershom and all this. And then she conceived again and bare a son, but circumcised his foreskin and called him Eliezer. For Moses said, because the God of my fathers was my help and delivered me. So I don't see the same story occurring here. Oh, here it is. Here it is, Rick. We just found it. See, hard work and persistence pays off. For Moses had hearkened to the words of his father-in-law, which he had spoken to him, not to circumcise his firstborn son. Therefore he circumcised him not. So he had listened to Reuel, Zipporah's father, and didn't circumcise his sons. And Zipporah saw the angel of the Lord. That's where the reference comes from in the Bible. It says Lord there. And I think it at first it was saying Jehovah, or it may be the angel of Yahweh, or it may be Yahweh himself. But anyway, saw the angel of the Lord seeking an occasion against Moses because they didn't circumcise their son. And she knew that this thing was owing to his not having circumcised her son Gershom. And Zipporah hastened and took a sharp rock stone that were there and circumcised her son Gershom and delivered her husband and her son from the hand of the angel of the Lord. That is the story. And I guess my hunches were right on the passage in the Bible. And then Aram, the son of Amram, the brother of Moses, was in Egypt walking the riverside that day, and the Lord appeared to him and said all this stuff. And I think that's the end of that exchange. But that confirms my thoughts on the passage, that Moses had not circumcised their children, and that God was angry for it, and that either God himself or an angel of the Lord was trying to, seeking an occasion against Moses, whatever that means. And she knew that was because they hadn't circumcised their sons, so they did it really quick. And according to the Bible, she, took it out on Moses because she's like, you're a man of blood or a god of blood, whatever. So interesting, really, really cool that we found that. I'm glad we did, because I was about to just stop and see if we could push it off till next week. Oh, goodness. All right. You're welcome, Rick. I'm glad we could do that. That was fun. I love it when the plan comes together. Anyone know the reference? What's that from? Come on. It's awesome. Okay, what's next on the agenda? Yes, Karen, you say, this is why I love the Apocrypha, fills in some of the gaps. So many writings for references. This is what it means in the Holy Scriptures, to study thyself. Yes, yes, I believe that's true. I believe that's what we should have been doing all along, really. There's no reason we shouldn't use supporting writings to help our understanding of what's in the Bible. There's no reason for doing that. Other than, keeping control over people. If you don't want them to understand what's in the Bible, then you can kind of tell them what it says, not give them the information, tell them to stay away from those apocryphal works, stay away from all that stuff, because what it's really going to do is shift their understanding to what's true away from the people trying to control it, right? And I'm not saying everyone that teaches the Bible is the only book and that you should never read anything else. I'm not saying everyone who says that is deviant or malintended, but it's at the minimum, it is ignorance, right? It's total ignorance. So yeah, I agree, Karen. I agree. All right. Next is Rafa Sieber's topic. Is heaven legalistic? OBEs and NDEs and dreams showing Jesus saving people. Okay, let's see if I can get this on there. This is a long one. It's a long topic name. So here we go. Is this? No, that's going to be too fit. It's too big to fit. Okay. There we go. Let's try that. Okay. So is heaven legalistic? This is the way you said it, Rafa. You said, is heaven legalistic? OBEs, meaning out-of-body experiences, and in NDEs, near-death experiences, essentially kind of the same thing. People have dreams showing Jesus saving them, right? They have, or experiences where they see hell, they see all these horrible things, but then God saves them. So an angel takes them out of it, or Jesus himself, in some cases, people say, Jesus saves them from it and then talks to them. And your question then at the end was, is God awakening people? Well, I think that that's God's ultimate goal, isn't it, Rafa? To awaken people to the truth of who he is and who his son Jesus is. That's exactly what he wants for everyone. Sip of coffee here real quick. So I would say that, yeah, I do believe God wants to awaken people. Now, is there something different going on now than has ever gone on before? Maybe. Yeah, it's highly possible. I do think this is a special time in history. I really do. I personally do. I'm not going to try to prove that to you otherwise than saying I do believe we're in a very special time in history. I think we're close to the end of what we call time, if that's the way you want to call it. I don't like using that terminology. I think we're close to the destruction of the physical world. Close, by close I mean years away, not centuries away. That's, I guess, how I would say that. But people are having a lot of out-of-body type experiences and near-death experiences where they see these things. And yes, I've seen lots of them. And I don't know how it is nowadays, the landscape on like YouTube, but other platforms too, that you can go searching for near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. Near-death experiences is usually better because then you see people mostly are talking about encounters with either God and angels or demons, depending on if they're Christian or not, And a lot of people do have an experience where they are shown hell, they are shown things in the underworld, horrible things, and then they have a talking to session with God himself, or Christ rather, usually. And he talks to them, asking them, about their lives, usually. That's usually what I've seen, is that after they're shown hell or have some experience where they're close to it or feel it or see it really close, then he takes them away and says, look, essentially you need to get your life on the right track. And it's kind of usually a question like, why are you doing these things? Why are you doing those things when all I want you to do is this? I want you to care about those around you. I want you to serve me and do good. You're missing opportunities to tell people. And, people come away with this from these experiences with just a total change of heart and understanding of what's important in life. They realize in most cases that 99% of what most of us concern ourselves with is not very important in this life, right? That the things he really cares about, and this is part of what plays into my psyche on some of this, is a long time ago, I did a lot of research on this type of stuff, dreams, near-death experience, and all these things. It has shaped the way I believe God feels about us in many ways. Because the things that people hear from, and I'm not saying all of those experiences are 100% accurate or true necessarily that I've heard online, but if half of them are true, then the majority of them have God saying to people and Christ saying to people something like this: if you had only spent your time worrying about loving the people around you and doing the right things and telling them about me, that would be all you need. It's not complicated. He never takes them into the depths of, say, doctrinal study, or how come you didn't understand the depths of my prophetic timeline or anything like that. None of that ever matters to God in these experiences. What seems to matter, and what he always communicates to people, is simply the doing of the right, and being righteous, and loving those around you in the best way you can, and then telling others about him. It really seems to be the crux. So I just wanted to say that because that shapes my view a lot when I come to the scriptures and I say things to you guys like, I had a discussion the other day with someone about sexuality and being worried about this or that, or had you done this thing in the wrong time or before marriage or any of that, and da-da-da-da-da. And oh my goodness, I was so worried about it. And I was like, for heaven's sake, in the end, he doesn't care about your body as much as he cares about your psyche, about your spirit. He wants you to love other people. Put that stuff behind you and move forward and do right and love other people. We get caught up in the minutia of all this stuff. And God really, Jesus Christ, will look you in the face when you pass and say, it was very simple. And you did the right things, or either that or you didn't do the right things. And the right things meaning loving people around you, doing what's right, being sacrificial in the way you treat people, doing things for people that you know they need, that takes care of them, and then telling people about him. It seems to be, honestly, I could boil it down to those two things. Tell others about who he is, and then prove it with your love. Maybe that's all it is. I'm getting choked up. I just love that it's so pure and it's so beautiful, and people make it so complicated. We got people on the other side of things, the Satanists and the atheists and all this, just being so angry at Christians. You've all done these horrible things and all this stuff. No, it's really the purest love that God wants us to have for one another. The purest thing in the world. More pure than any other, fake religion teaches you. The Hinduistic religions, the New Age religions, teach you a type of love for other people. There's a lot of Hindus and Buddhists that, quote, seem very loving, but their love kind of comes out of a little bit of a selfish place, right? They want to achieve enlightenment. They want to do this. They want to go on to be this. They want to all these things, and the path for them to get there is by doing good things. So they're doing the good things, but their motive is janky. It's off kilter. So what we really want is for our motive to be to God. The motive is God, and the things we're going to do is love each other and provide for one another and be sacrificial about it and teach each other about who he is. It's really very simple. So I love what you guys are saying in the chat, and I think that that is all true. The other piece of, Rafa, your question, you said, is heaven legalistic? Now, I can only kind of interpret what you mean there. But yeah, I do think heaven's a little legalistic. God seems to be very concerned with the righteous deeds of mankind or the wicked deeds of mankind. He, in fact, has books in which all of these things are written down. And then he has a book called the Book of Life, where your name may be. If I think a few things could be the case, but especially if you have accepted his son, Jesus Christ, as your Savior, believed in who he is and what he did, and you put your trust in Christ, that his sacrifice is enough for you and everyone else, and that it cleanses your sin. We put our trust in that and our belief in that, and then we go the direction of God, then our names are in that book of life. So yes, there's a legalistic sense to heaven, but then the legality is truly taken care of for us by Christ. The legality of all of it. Now, is there a possible way in which someone who does not know Christ can get into heaven? I actually think that may be possible. That may be true. If for instance, you know, a lot of times people talk about different, you know, remote cultures, like in the sub-Saharan African rainforests or something, you know, that may not know anything about Christ, may not have been told about Jesus. That how can they be saved? Well, my friend, God knows the heart of those individuals, and he knows whether they have the type of faith it would require for them to believe in his son. And simply if they have never heard about his son, I don't think that that is going to keep them from going to heaven. But if they are wicked and evil and do heinous acts, that will keep them from going to heaven. So it's about faith, as Hebrews says in chapter 11. It's always been about faith. And because you then hear about Christ and you understand who he is, that again is a demonstration of your faith in God, that he sent his son, that he is who he says he is, all this stuff. Do you see the faith was constant throughout all of that? And God provided a way to cleanse our sin in that. And in the same way, I believe people that have faith in God, whether they understand that as Yahweh or some other name or this name or that name, however they understand that, if it's faith in the Creator and that it's a faith that leads them to righteous acts towards one another, then I believe they probably will be in heaven too. And in that sense, maybe heaven is a little legalistic. And perhaps it has to be, because God is righteous and holy. So maybe that answers your questions, Rafa. It's kind of a combo question, but I get where it comes from. So thank you for that. Cindy, I see you said, is there any correlation with the recent rise of hallucinogenics, psilocybin, magic mushrooms, etc., in regards to OBEs, out-of-body experiences? I don't know, Cindy, so I guess maybe yes, but I will say this, the ones that I have looked at online, I have looked at people that didn't, I mean, I've looked at both, but I don't give as much credence to the testimony of people who have indulged in hallucinogenics. I've done a lot of study, by the way, on the DMT thing, dimethyl tri, I'm going to say it wrong, DMT, or ayahuasca, you know, is similar. So DMT can be produced from ayahuasca, which is a plant in South America. And of course, the South American natives used ayahuasca. They made, I think they would smoke it or boil it or something. I think they boiled it over fire and then would inhale the fumes from the ayahuasca. And they would, of course, do that intentionally to contact spirits. That was the point of ayahuasca for the shamans. And so people that do that stuff now, they definitely, I think, are experiencing some kind of sense of the spiritual realm. I can't explain it all. I haven't done it myself, and I'm not going to probably ever do that. I don't need to. I feel like my connection to God and the spiritual is very strong, and I don't need that kind of ecstatic experience. Or the problem with those experiences, I think they loosen cords within you that make you a little too susceptible to spirituality, to the spirit world. And so what I would not want to do was go and sabotage myself, where I now have a good connection to God and to spirituality, and then go do that, and it opens some cord or thing inside me that allows demonic activity to influence me. I would definitely not want to do that. So I personally will never do a hallucinogenic or a mind-altering substance like ayahuasca or DMT, which of all the ones out there, those are the ones that seem to be the most interesting as far as their effects. And yes, I have read much about the machine elves, as you put in the chat a second ago. Oh my goodness. Yes, Cookie Bear, that's funny. No, I've read Rick Strassman. Is it Rick Strassman's book on DMT? And I would recommend that everyone read that. It's a really incredible book. Don't watch the video. There's a video and it doesn't even scratch the surface of what's in the book. Let me just double check on the, let's see, Strassman, DMT, DMT. By the way, yeah, I've done quite a bit of research on it. I have all of the DMT experiences that I've looked at documented here. Yeah, I've done quite a bit on it. Yeah, Rick Strassman. Here's the guy, Rick Strassman. He did the initial studies on DMT, and it was back in the, I think 80s when he did his major studies. This new stuff he's doing is probably garbage. I wouldn't recommend it. His book is, The Spirit Molecule. That's the book you need to read. And again, read the book. Don't read the book. Don't watch the video. Or you can watch the video, but just know after you've watched the video, there's a documentary called this DMT, The Spirit Molecule. If you've watched the video, you've seen about 10% of what's in the book and what's talked about. I mean, they talk all about these different beings like the machine elves and mantis beings and other alien entities, alien in the sense of foreign, not like aliens from another planet. Spirits. But there's a wide, again, landscape variety of these spiritual beings that are encountered during these experiences. And they are talked to, and after subsequent experiences, they continue conversations with the same entities again and again. So it kind of proves that it's not in the mind of the individual. It's not something that's being fabricated. They're literally talking to entities outside themselves. Entities that remember who they are, remember what's been previously talked about, and then change the conversations or continue them. So I would just say that book, reading that book, was one of the most interesting things that I've ever studied on the topic. But I think I'm getting off track here now, but very interesting stuff. Walk with Christ. I see you make a comment that is totally off topic, but that's okay. Totally off topic. Florida now has the death penalty for pedophiles. I know you feel very strongly about this topic. Yeah, that's true. I do. Squiffy Berry, you asked, are people coming to God through these experiences with the DMT and stuff like that? No, the thing that's goofy about it is that most of them come away thinking to themselves and saying, I have a new expanded idea of my consciousness. I understand things so much better. Everything's so clear to me. The thing that's funny about that is that when they try to then explain what's so clear to them, they can't. They don't know. They just have essentially what's happened to them, I think, is that their kind of spiritual veil has been broken, and it causes I think it causes within an individual a different type of consciousness to be, a different perspective. I just think that's all they're talking about. So, but no, I've never necessarily heard people talking and saying that they had come closer to God, specifically the God of the Israelites, the God of Jacob and Abraham. No one coming out of DMT usually says, "Oh, I love God more than ever." But some of them have that background already. So some of them I've heard say that became stronger for them, like if they had that background. But again, I would not recommend this, no matter what they say. I would not recommend this at all. I just really wouldn't. But a lot of people try to do that and want that experience. They got to have the experience. I just don't think it's that important. So let me double check something. I see on the Rumble side, I'm looking at y'all's comments, Felony and HL Dixon, a little bit. I see, Felony, you say you really appreciate my perspective here. Yeah, great. And you say, in regards to OBEs, any correlation with the use of psilocybin? Oh, I see. You're on both platforms because I didn't see your chat. No problem. Yeah, thanks for that. Recent legalization of psilocybin. Yeah, there's a lot of that. And, there's a lot of people out there too that they will say that people that experiment with these drugs, they'll say, well, the government's trying to keep these drugs away from you because they don't want you to understand the spiritual side of things. And I don't know what I think about that. I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. But can you imagine, though, what society would be like if everyone was just tripping on drugs all the time? I don't know, but it'd be different. So anyway, I don't know if that's true, but it's interesting. Yes, Walk with Christ, The Spirit Molecule. That's the name of that book. DMT, The Spirit Molecule by Rick Strassman. All right. What time is it? Oh boy, guys, we've gone pretty long already. Looking at our remaining topics, let me see if there's anything we can do real quick. The remaining topics are Stacia, when Christ says, or when are two or three are gathered together, I'm there. I think I would want to keep that for next time because Stacia, that's actually a good discussion. I want to have it. Rafa, you asked my take on AI. Are demons behind it, like with aliens? I mean, I could talk about that. Karen Morgan's, do I think visions and dreams in the prophetic is in our season? Prophetic. Karen Morgan, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say what I think or wait till next time. I think we may just wait on these. So a lot here. There's a lot of juicy stuff here. And I think I may keep those for next time since we've already gone an hour and a half. So I think, guys, I'll end it today, and we will be done. It's been awesome. Had a blast. As always, I feel like I've said a lot, and I'll have to go back and listen to see what I said. But you guys are great. You've brought some awesome topics. I've enjoyed having a few new faces, at least as far as the names I see. Sometimes I forget things too, so maybe that I just haven't seen you in a while, but it's great to have you. Walk with Christ. And a few of you other guys. Let's see. Who are some of our newer ones here? B. Nichols, I'm glad you were able to join us. Yeah, out towards the front, I thought we had a few of you that I didn't recognize right off the bat. Oh, anyway, it's good to have all of you guys here. I've had a blast, and thank you for the topics. I hope you guys have a great day. Go outside. It seems to be pretty nice out there, depending on where you are. It may be a little cool. You may need a jacket. And God bless all of you guys too. I appreciate all of you. So y'all take care and have a great day. Bye.